Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. It's going to be loud. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We are live from Books and Books here in Coral Gables, Florida. Thank you so much for being here. To our internet audience watching, if at any time during tonight's presentation you'd like to get a copy of the book, give us a call here at the store on the number on your screen, and we will get an autographed copy shipped to you for no charge for the shipping here in the U.S. And for those of you here, please silence your cell phones. Don't forget to visit us online at booksandbooks.com. While you're there, you can give us your email address, and we can send you emails of everything that goes on here at the store. As you know, we have quite a bit of events here at the store going on. We do about 60 events every month. We've got our newsletter on the counter. You can pick up a copy of this. This will give you a breakdown of all the events we have. And we archive all of our events as well, so that if you want to go home and watch yourself on camera, which you may be during the Q&A period, you can do that as well. And if anybody has more than 3 friends on Facebook, like I do, you can go ahead and let them know that we're live streaming tonight, or Twitter them and let them know that we are doing this as well. And as I say, there's a couple of cameras. There's one over there. There's one over here that will be pointed at the audience during the Q&A portion tonight. So for the benefit of your friends and neighbors that may be watching online, just make sure you're sitting next to who you're supposed to be sitting next to. We're very happy to have back with us Paul Levine and his new book, Bum Rush, but to give us the more formal welcome to Mr. Levine is his good friend, famed attorney, and a spinner of tales himself. Please welcome Mr. Stuart Grossman.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here tonight because, to my knowledge, this is the first time that the unholy trinity of Carl Hiaasen, Dave Barry, and Paul Levine has been broken. Normally they have a deal where one or the other introduces them. And so the audience really learns nothing about them, except that they worked at the Herald or are continuously working at the Herald, and that Miami is a very great place to gather information for novels and movies and things like that. Incidents and allegations and incidents that this man has been through are never brought up. Questions that would take 2 Q&A sessions are never brought up. And it won't happen tonight either, because he told me I had 3 or 4 minutes to speak. And so I deeply regret that. Paul's childhood was lived in a mind-numbing place called Hughesville, Pennsylvania. I'm going to take you through his life, so the first 18 years will disappear like smoke. Nothing happened there. He and his father were the only Jews, and I think you can say the Amish were unkind. There's nothing more to say about it. He went on to Penn State University as a freshman, and immediately began to work for the Daily Collegian. He rose through the ranks from being just a writer to sports editor, and then became the editor-in-chief of that great paper. It was during that time that he totally missed the sex scandal that was taking place in the Department of Athletics. His sharp investigative skills were maybe not yet in focus, but somehow he could parlay what he missed into getting a job at the Miami Herald. And there, the legendary Gene Miller, who's been missed by this community forever, was the managing editor. And he saw something in Paul and said, this guy's got potential, and I'm going to assign him to county court. And so he sent him to county court, where he missed Operation Broom Sweep, Quick Broom, all the things Stan Blake was involved in. I don't know what. But he missed that as well. Nevertheless, what he didn't miss was the ability to understand life as told through this very interesting guy, Lasseter, who, of course, has Penn State roots, Dolphins roots, and is deeply rooted in friends and loved ones of Paul's. He's a compendium of different characters. Those of us who have had their names mentioned in his books or had characters written about him always get these little short notes from Paul asking for permission if the name. And I casually write back, I'm not sure, Paul. What does he do? Tell me something about him, things of that nature. But the truth is we leap at every opportunity. Paul's gone on and left, of course, the formal practice of law. did what so many people dream about doing but don't do, which is to follow his muse. And he went to Los Angeles and became a screenwriter, continued the novels. We're up to about number 20 now. And he's just been a great contributor to the arts. He's the best friend and confidant you could ever have. And I'm blessed to have known him and know him and will know him for the rest of his life. Thanks for being here, and thanks so much for those of you that are watching or listening to this, because that you participate and share in his dream and read his work is just a wonderful thing to have happen. Paul.
For those people who are watching on the live streaming, don't adjust your set. That really is the color of Stuart's jacket. Thank you, sir. It was lovely. You look like a cup of lime gelato, but it was lovely. Oh, socks still in the dryer, are they? I have more to say about Stuart later. I will say this, because we were law school classmates, as with Stan Blake also, Judge Blake. These guys haven't changed anything since law school, other than their spouses. But for the better, Karen, for the better. I'll say this, Stuart was a great student. He showed up to class in his tennis whites. If you remember those head tennis shorts that, were about like this, and a matching white shirt, little collar, and his tennis racket, little white cover. He was ready for Wimbledon. And he was sort of saying, I think, to the professors, as opposed to kind of the ass kissers, of which I was, that I'm too cool for school. Hit me with your best shot. And then he'd go to the tennis court. And we knew he would never amount to anything. We knew it. But enough about you. It is a great pleasure to be here at the greatest bookstore in the United States of America. And it just is. And Mitchell Kaplan is in the house tonight, so give Mitchell a hand. For all these years, there he is, as a cultural leader of this community, nonpareil. The writer's greatest fear is not that he or she is going to get a bad review or won't sell any books. The writer's greatest fear is to come to a bookstore and there's nobody there. And it's happened to me. Last Saturday, Marcia and I were in New York, and I was doing a panel on legal thrillers, and I stopped into a panel, and these were the people on the panel: Sandra Brown, Scott Turow, Nelson DeMille, R.L. Stein, David Morrell. Lee Child was supposed to be, didn't show up. And they were all asked the same question: what's the worst book signing story you have? And they each, and this made me feel good, they're stories from their young days. It had to do with nobody showing up or a maniac showing up, that sort of thing. But Nelson DeMille, who was here recently with his new book, had a great, not that I'm plugging Nelson DeMille, he's a wonderful writer. He had the best story. I'm going to repeat it very quickly. He is at a mall store in Cincinnati. It's a Walden store. Everybody remember those Walden stores? They do. Remember Borders? No. Mitchell killed Borders single-handedly. He's a young writer. He's on tour. He's at the Walden store. It's a weeknight. I've done this. He comes into the room. Here are the chairs. Nobody is in the chair. Nobody. No. So he can't start yet. It's 8 o'clock. It's 8:05. It's 8:10. Suddenly, two men come into the store rather hurriedly, sit right here where my son Michael and Asia are sitting, and he's so relieved. He starts his spiel. In about 90 seconds, two policemen rush in, grab the two guys. I swear. They had just robbed a bank and figured, I guess, a bookstore. There's a metaphor or a parable or something in that. And actually, I think in Bum Rap, on Miami Beach, Jake Lasseter and Victoria Lord need to get away from the police if something terrible has happened on the beach in a scene. And they figure, well, the cops will never find us here. They go into Books and Books on Lincoln Road and have a little chat and have lunch while they do it. I'm I have a story that's actually almost as good as Nelson and Mills, and I'll tell you that before we start talking seriously. This goes back almost 20 years. And I was in Books A Million in Birmingham, Alabama. Mitchell knows Books A Million. And it was going fairly well. I had a stream of people. I'd been on the radio that morning, back when radio used to interview authors on morning drive shows. And I'm sitting there with this book, which I dusted off and brought in. It's called Mortal Sin, and there's a woman in a bikini on the front to let you know that there's some sex in the book, and there's a flamingo to let you know it's Florida. And I'm sitting there, and this very, very attractive woman, kind of a strawberry blonde in a sundress, comes walking up to me. I was single at the time, I might point out. It was between wives, and she said, "Mortal sin." I go, "Yeah." She said, "Do you know about Mortal Sin?" And I said, "I wrote the book." And she said, "Would you like to know more about Mortal Sin?" And I said, "I'm a quick learner, too." She reaches into her purse and she takes out a business card and hands it to me, and it's Reverend Sandra something, and she motions to this man. "My husband and I have a church right down the road here." That's my book signing story. Nobody robbed a bank. Anyway, it's great to be here. It's great to be back with Jake Lasseter after all of these years. Mitchell, thank you for all of your support. We go back a long time. It was 20 years ago. I was in the store. It might have been the other location. And Mitchell said to me, there's a kid from Miami who's out in Seattle now, and he's selling books on the internet. Some little company he started. And I sensed Mitchell was worried about it. So I said to him, nobody will ever buy a book on the internet thing. And whatever you do, if it goes public, don't put any money in it. Do what I do. Be safe. Put your dough in Eastern Airlines. That's what I told him. I have actually a lot of business acumen. Marketing sense. This is a true story. Dave's not here tonight, but Dave Barry, Ridley Pearson, and I were riding bicycles together one day, roughly the same time, or maybe a few years later, with Mitch Albom in Stewart's favorite place in Sun Valley. And Mitch was saying, as we're pedaling along, that he was planning to write a book, or he was already writing the book, I guess, where he had gone back to visit his dying professor from Brandeis, who everybody here knows, Maury Schwartz, and he was going to pass on the words of wisdom from Maury Schwartz to the world. And I remember saying to myself and a couple of other people, that's the worst idea for a book I've ever heard, that not even Mitch's family would buy that book, and probably not the professors either. But because I am such a good person, I said, "Mitch, I have a great title for you." And he said, "What?" "It's obvious. Tuesdays with Schwartz." And the rest is history, as you know. Jake Lasseter has paid my bills for the last 25 years. It was 25 years ago this month that To Speak for the Dead was published. And Bum Rap marks his 11th adventure. There are other books, too. And it brings Steve Solomon, Victoria Lord over from that series. Obviously, I love the courtroom, and I think it's a wonderful venue, the justice system for fiction and for telling stories about the gray areas of fiction. I'm going to actually tell you the names of some other books that I really love, because there's a common theme that runs through them and has influenced me over the years. And they're going to be very recognizable to you. Anybody see the play or see the movie of Witness for the Prosecution? See, everybody's of a certain age in here. That's what you get in book crowd. And they know Witness for the Prosecution, Agatha Christie's play, the fabulous movie. Anatomy of a Murder, again, 1950s, black and white movie. Otto Preminger shot on location in northern Michigan, I think up by Traverse City. Presumed Innocent, Scott Turow, maybe the best legal thriller ever written, one of the greatest mysteries of all time. To Kill a Mockingbird has been in the news lately. You may have heard of that book, and the new one. And E.L. Doctorow's Ragtime, which we don't think of as a legal thriller because it's so much more. Of course, To Kill a Mockingbird is so much more. But what is a common theme that runs through all of those works? And it's in a way, it's kind of an unfortunate theme. Justice doesn't get done. To Kill a Mockingbird, an innocent man is convicted of rape. He's killed in prison. In Presumed Innocent, though an innocent man is acquitted, spoiler alert, the guilty party's never even charged. Ragtime, the justice system lets down Coalhouse Walker, kills his fiancée. He goes virtually insane, and when he's trying to surrender after being a vigilante, they kill him. Anatomy of a Murder is a gray area. He's acquitted. Was he guilty? We don't know. Witness for the prosecution has a really interesting twist at the end, does it not, if you remember it? Guilty man is acquitted, justice undone, but then is murdered in the courtroom by his wife in the next to last scene of the movie, which I call rough justice. I kind of like rough justice. And in the Jake Lasseter books, we see a lot of that. Jake doesn't necessarily believe what's carved into the marble. And by that, he means, in the Supreme Court building, on one end of the building in the pediment, it says equal justice under law. And the other end says justice, guardian of liberty. And every lawyer in the room knows, Joel Hirschhorn knows, that in the courtrooms of Dade County, what does it say above the bench? We who labor here seek only the truth. And Jake has this jaundiced view. He thinks justice is worth pursuing. You have to believe it's worth pursuing, but it's very difficult to achieve. And rough justice is better than none at all. I'm going to read you one paragraph. He doesn't usually get philosophical and hit it on the nose, but once in a while he does. Not in dialogue, but in his interior. He says justice is an ideal, a vague concept we can barely define, much less master. Justice requires lawyers who are prepared, witnesses who tell the truth, judges who know the law, and jurors who stay awake. Justice is the North Star, the burning bush, the Holy Virgin. It cannot be bought, sold, or mass-produced. It's intangible and invisible, but if you are to spend your life in its pursuit, it's best to believe it exists and that you can attain it. And it's against that backdrop that all these things happen. So let me tell you a little bit about Bum Rap and tell you how it started. It started because my wife, Marcia Silvers, who's now rolling her eyes, thank you, everybody, one day says to me, as she's pouring through a trial transcript that's like, this high, come here, I think you ought to read this. I said, I'm not going to read, I don't read court transcripts. I don't read appellate court cases. I don't do that. She says, no, I think you want to look at this. I said, what is it? And you folks probably know the case because it was all over the Miami Herald. And that is the case of the bar girls and the Russian guys who owned the champagne clubs who were getting guys credit cards and charging $8,000 to $12,000 for a bottle of champagne. Playboy magazine did a story about the weatherman from Philadelphia who came down and charged $60,000 one night and came back again the next night. And then tried to buy the painting. We did. He bought the painting behind the bar, which I picture in my head. It's like a red velvet painting of the Kremlin. Like, how much for that thing, And $8,000. Here, good, go. Give me your American Express. So it was a massive federal case, and it had a lot of sexual elements in it. And Marcia says, just read this portion of the bar girl's testimony with the U.S. attorney. And to do this, it's very, very short. I'm calling on my son, Mike, who did the audio narration, my sportscaster son, Mike. He gets to play the bar girl. I get to be the U.S. attorney. He gets a microphone. Thank you.
Is this on? Oh, there we are.
All right. Now, we know your normal voice. What is your normal voice?
Hi, everybody. How
All
are you?
right. So now the pressure is on. I'm the U.S. attorney.
And it's been since March since I was able to.
That's okay. There are no excuses. Julika is your name. It's Nadia in the book, but you're Julika. It doesn't matter. She's a Russian bar girl. Did you encourage men who came to the clubs to drink?
I tried to make them as drunk as possible.
And why is that?
Because sober men will never spend as much money as drunk men.
Did the men pay several $1,000s for a single bottle of cheap champagne?
Their minds were on B-girls, not on credit card slip.
Did you ever offer the men sex?
No, because I was not acting as prostitutes, but I gave them hope.
You gave them hope by zipping down their pants?
Yes, touching them, kissing them, anything you can think.
Giving them hope that they would have sex with you.
All my behavior was inclining to this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. As soon as I read that, a chapter actually appeared in my brain titled Giving Men Hope. I knew Jake would go to a B-girl joint, a champagne club on South Beach. I knew there would be a fight. I knew there would be terrible things happening, and the whole story came into my head. And that's kind of what's going on with Bum Rap. It gives nothing away to say that in chapter 1, page 1, there's a shooting and that Steve Solomon is going to be charged with murder. Lassiter will defend him. The two men hate each other, which also adds to the dramatic tension. Jake sees in Steve his own younger self, reckless, arrogant, and also has kind of a thing for Victoria Lord, creating a conflict of interest. Jake loses the case, Solomon goes to prison, Victoria Lord is available. I love ethical dilemmas. Love them. Not in my personal life, but on the page. So that's kind of the background, and I'd like to open it up for questions. If anybody has anything, we'll take them now, and I'll repeat them for the people who are watching in Bulgaria. I just did an interview with Bulgaria. That's why I can say that. Anybody? Oh, somebody has a question. There's always a question. Always a question. Nobody has a question. Stuart, what?
What happened to the dog Zonka?
I got an email yesterday, which I now regret sharing with Stuart, from a doctor in Alabama who said, I've read all your books. He asked a question about the car Jake drives. He goes, what happened to Lassiter's dog Zonka?
And the 442.
And the old 442. Forget the old. Jake did not have a dog in the 1990s when the first 7 books were written. In 2011, when I brought him out of retirement in a book called Lassiter, I gave him a bulldog, a big bulldog, drooling, named Zonka, naturally enough. And in 2013, I wrote Last Chance Lassie, which was a prequel, so he couldn't have that dog. 2014, I write Bum Rap, and I forgot about the dog. And I wrote an email back to the very nice doctor in Alabama, and I said, you may not know this story. 1945, Howard Hawks was adapting Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep with Humphrey Bogart, a classic book and a classic film. And Hawks and Bogart are having an argument, and the argument is who killed the chauffeur. So they sent a telegram to Raymond Chandler, who had written the book and I believe collaborated on the screenplay, said, who killed the chauffeur? And he telegraphed back, I have not a clue. No damned idea. That was his answer. So I don't know what happened to Zonka. Oh, I did see Larry Zonka on Ballers the other night. Yes.
What clicked in your brain to bring the two series together into a single book?
Well, I learned through metrics and analytics that they had 2 different sets of fans, and I thought I could join them, and instead of having to write 2 books, I could write 1. And it turned out it really worked out well. It really, I mean, I'm happy with it.
You gonna do it again?
I'm going to do it again with the 3 of them on a 2 on one side of the case, one on another. Yes. A little side trip to Havana, because I want to go to Havana. It's tax deductible when you do that. Dave Berry went to Ireland and drank beer for 2 weeks. It was tax deductible because he wrote one column in the Herald, and I'm, you know, that's my precedent. Yes. Is there anything else from the floor?
How long on
Barker.
average does it take you to write a book?
It depends if I have to do research. In research, you know, Anthony Doerr just wrote, well, didn't just write a book, it was out a year, and he wrote All the Light We Cannot See, which is one of the great books of the last 20 years, in my opinion. Karen, would you agree with that? Marcia, would you agree with that? All right. It took him 10 years. He had to have spent 5 years on research. And he had never had a hit book. He'd had one novel before and a bunch of short stories. He'd won a few awards that nobody's ever heard of. He had a Guggenheim Fellowship, which actually reminds me of something I forgot to say. Just like I forgot about Zonka. There was a time I didn't need these, you know. I could do this like without a note. Like Clarence Darrow, in his summation, Leopold Loeb, you know, it was 16 hours. He had no notes.
How are you doing it without glasses?
I had cataract surgery. What can I tell you?
How long does it take you to write a book?
Oh, well, that was the question. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I'm getting there in my own fashion. Anthony Doerr took 10 years. He had a Guggenheim Fellowship that paid him some cash. When I left the partnership in my old law firm, the big old law firm, I hadn't yet published a book. I'd written a book that had been rejected by everybody, and I wanted to write a book. And I didn't want to be with a law firm anymore. And I had a Grossman Fellowship because Stewart, in his brand new law firm with Neil Roth, invited me to come over, gave me free space, free secretary, free reign, coffee, and I was able to practice part-time and write to speak for the dead. And without my Guggenheim Grossman, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So may I thank you publicly for that? 9 months, basically. 2 or 3 months to outline. I always outline. And the rest to write it. And there's a lot of rewriting. It can take a year.
How disciplined are you to write every day?
Well, I used to get up really early, and write early, and then take off. Fairly disciplined. Fairly, yes. How disciplined are you in the law practice?
Very.
Okay. I don't have to keep timesheets. That's sort of the great joy in not having to go downtown, put on a coat and tie. When I lived in Coconut Grove, I've told this story before. I lived on Mary Street for a while, and I would get a lot of FedEx packages from the publisher and the agents and all of this. And it didn't occur to me that for the last year or so, and I always had the same FedEx delivery woman, I would come to the door in my bathrobe, unshaven, and all that, because I worked at home, and I would usually get cleaned up in the afternoon. And one day she delivers a package from Random House. I go, oh, wait, let me show you, because I knew what it was. They send you the first book off the printing press, so they say it's the first book. They lie. It doesn't matter. I said, look, it's my book. And she goes, oh, that's what you do. All this time I thought you were a bum. Anything else before I let you go? And anybody who wants, I'll sign a book. Yeah.
Where else did you practice law besides Miami?
No place else. I've not authorized anywhere else. They never let me go to Broward County even. I'm just right here. Michael.
Can you be both a bum and an author?
Can you? I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Can
you.
you be both a bum and an author?
Yes, you can. You can be both a bum and a lawyer, actually. Yes. Okay. Yes.
You'd rather go with publishing companies instead of self-publishing?
Well, I've done everything. I've been published by the Big 8 that are now the Big 5. I've self-published. This book is published by Thomas and Mercer, which is a subsidiary of Amazon, and it's sort of it's a hybrid of the two. It was very interesting when they called me and said they wanted to publish the book. They didn't use the word buy. They said, we want to partner with you in the publication. And I said, I'm not putting any money into it. And they said, no, that's not what they mean. We mean we want to be cooperative with you in the publishing. And they have been very much so, even right down to cover design and publicity, which the big five are not that sensitive to. So there's something for everybody in publishing.
Did you know, Marcia, when you did Lassiter versus the State or the State versus Lassiter?
What year was that? I don't remember. Yes.
Because I heard there was a character in there that seemed very...
Well, Marcia's in the new book. Marcia's in the new book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the new one, I know.
She's not a B-girl. She's a super lawyer. I was at the cocktail party with her. Yes. The answer is yes. I get the years mixed up along with a dog.
Characters that I read about that sounded similar to her physique and good looks.
Yes, that was her. In books before I knew her, that was her. Yes.
That's what I wondered, if you found your ideal.
You think I'm an idiot? It's nice to be here in front of your friends. Anything else?
One more question.
Yes.
For first-time authors, do you advise them to go self-publishing?
Well, if it's possible to get first an agent and then a conventional publisher, whether it's one of the big five or whether it's one of the many, many really good small publishers, that would be the way to start and get books into bookstores that way. And if not, self-publishing is an alternative. But I would always recommend people to do that. Yes, sir.
Do you write in longhand or on the computer?
I generally take a stick and some mud. Longhand? No. What is this? Abe Lincoln with a no. The word processor is the greatest invention ever for the writer.
So what's the answer?
A computer. The computer. Yes. Yes. Doug, last question.
Have you started your next book?
It's in my head. It just hasn't worked its way out yet. Yes.
In much of your writing, do you think about the screen and getting it in some form, TV or movie?
No, I don't think about getting it into a movie, as that's so difficult, but I see the scenes visually, so that kind of helps me write them. I see movement, I see colors, I see faces, and I hear dialogue. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Do you use Scrivener or any similar software?
I don't know what Scrivener is. I'm still using WordPerfect. Really, I'm still using WordPerfect. And it works. Nobody else has. Some lawyers still have it. Lawyers are the only ones who have WordPerfect, but it works. Longhand would work. There are still some writers who do that. There are some. I know some who do it. And in television, I think David Kelly handwrites his scripts. I know he does. David Kelly handwrites his scripts, and he has a masseuse come in to rub his arm every day. Earl Stanley Gardner, who was an outstanding lawyer and, of course, wrote Perry Mason, used to dictate his books just the way lawyers dictate their briefs. He would have two secretaries taking down, because when one would faint, the next one would take over, because he would work for 14 hours without stopping. Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Paul. For those of you watching online, don't forget you can still give us a call here at the store. We'll get a book signed for you. Thank you, Mr. Grossman, for your introduction to Levine Jr. Let's get another round of applause for Mr. Levine. Thank you. Folks, if as you rise, you could fold your chair.